Growing up, my childhood was great. I came from a small town, tight-knit family, very family-oriented. It was just a blessing to be able to have family functions and always be around each other. And as time went on and I grew older, I started experimenting with drugs, and really pharmaceutical drugs starting out, and seemed to like, opiates a lot, and that's led my life into, disaster. I went through a long time of Oxycontin and oxycodone, and was really abusing it all the time and just escaping from reality, and didn't, the same values that I grew up with, having a tight-knit family, those values no longer meant anything to me. It was all a selfish walk then, and it was only about me and what I could do to further my motive. It didn't matter if it was manipulation or hurting the ones around me, as long as I could get high and continue doing what I wanted to do. I found myself in a really dark time in life, where you thought that you had people that were for you, but everyone against you, and you just felt alone. I felt defeated all the time, and just that I couldn't get out of the rut that I was in. And I found myself telling my family for the first time that I had a heroin addiction, and I wanted help. I wanted something different in life, that I wanted out of this lifestyle that I got myself into. So I called my mom, and she came and picked me up from the house I was at in Springfield. I left my car, left everything that I owned there, and hopped in the vehicle with her and went to get help. Within doing that, we probably called, 20 places in one day trying to find me, how to get help and recovery. Everywhere wanted insurance, or they wanted to put me on Suboxone or methadone, and I didn't want to go down that. I didn't want to get on a pill to get off of something. I wanted to be, set free of what I was dealing with. And through a series of events, that couldn't happen. And I didn't have the insurance or didn't meet the qualifications to get into these facilities. So I started getting down on myself, and was, quickly going back to that same lifestyle. And a lady asked me to go to church one day, and I go into this church. It was the Ava Assembly of God, and as I walk in there, everyone, that's praise and worship and lifting hands, and someone was twirling flags, and I thought this place was crazy. I didn't know what I went into, but he started preaching on addiction, and I immediately thought I got set up. I thought everyone was, coming at me. I went into the bathroom because I felt the conviction. I didn't know what it was at the time, but as he's preaching about addiction, I went into the bathroom of that church and was trying to get high on heroin, and I should have overdosed in that bathroom, because the more heroin I did, I couldn't feel it. Well, little did I know, while I was in the bathroom, they had stopped the service, and they did not know I was in the bathroom trying to get high on heroin. And they all began to pray in the center of this aisle and make a declaration that they're not standing for addiction anymore. And the more that they're praying, I'm in the bathroom and I can't get high. I feel this, presence come over me, not knowing what it was. And I walked into that service and told the pastor that I was going to die and I needed help. And that was where my journey of salvation began. They struggled with the same things of calling over 20 facilities. They could not get me in. There was bed wait space. There was, all these things that I couldn't get into, get recovery, couldn't get into a facility. And right whenever I was losing hope, get a phone call saying there's a place in Mountain Home, Arkansas called CareCenter Ministries. They've been going for 6 months. You need to call Ty Cotter. So I called Pastor Ty, and immediately on the phone he said, "Are you ready to change your life? You ready to let God change your life?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, you can't have no girlfriends, no cigarettes, and you got to be ready to step into some discipleship." And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I wanted help. So in that moment, we loaded up from Ava, Missouri, and headed down to Mountain Home, Arkansas. I devoted everything in my life to the obedience of Christ, and I definitely went through some struggling times going through the men's home, because it was rough, it was raw, all the manipulation and the trying to connive my way into things and get things my way was addressed immediately, and I wasn't used to that. So character defects got challenged all the time, but it's what shaped and molded me through that discipleship that built me into a man of God. So after being there for 7 months, I finally had decided that I was going to give my life to ministry and accept the call that I knew God was placing on me. I struggled with wanting to go to work, but I ended up going into ministry. Through that, I graduated the Leadership Academy, graduated the International School of Ministry, and then was eventually ordained as a pastor. And that was a pivotal moment in my life. I was totally redeemed. I was made new and walking in the fullness of what He had.
Growing up, my childhood was happy but kind of dysfunctional. My parents didn't have the greatest relationship, and they divorced when I was about 13. As I got into high school, I started partying and kind of just smoking pot, and then that led to taking pills, and then that led to doing coke and doing meth and all that sort of stuff. But it was never really an addiction issue. It was just kind of recreationally. And then in my early 20s, I was diagnosed as bipolar. And then from there, I was on like a whole gamut of psych medications and was on them for years, but doing okay. My life was pretty successful. I was functioning, and then in 2011, I lost someone close to me, and from there, I kind of spiraled deeper into a pill addiction, into those that weren't prescribed to me, into hydros and oxys and all that sort of stuff, and that led to me eventually doing meth and doing heroin and all those things that we do to try to survive the pain that we don't want to feel. I had this void inside of me, but I didn't know what could fill it other than that. I knew that it didn't fill it, but I just kept trying, and then it got to the point to where I was not functioning anymore. I wasn't able to be a mother. I wasn't able to be a friend. I wasn't able to be anything but an addict at that point. My kids went to stay with a family member, and I tried to kill myself. I took bottles and bottles of pills, should have died. I wrote a suicide note, and then like 24 hours later, I woke up from what one person should not ever wake up from, and I knew that it was God that had woken me up. I knew that God was real, but I didn't know God at that point. I didn't have a relationship with God. I just knew that like only He could have brought me back from that. And so I was crying and I was pleading and I was screaming to Him, if you're not going to let me die, you have to let me live. You have to give me something to live for again. I cannot live like this anymore. And the next morning I was at CareCenter. When I showed up there detoxing, I couldn't sleep for like 3 days. My teeth were chattering. I was shaking so bad. I was sweating buckets, and they didn't judge me. They prayed for me. They laid hands on me, and they believed God for me. And I knew that's what I was called to help other people go through. So I stepped into the Leadership Academy. I committed to going through the International School of Ministry and 2.5 more years there. And then during my time in leadership, I went through one of the darkest times that I've ever been through in my life. I doubted God. I doubted everything. The spirit of suicide tried to attach to me again, so bad that they actually hid the knives in the house for me, as crazy as that sounds. But God brought me through. I laid it at His feet. I surrendered it to Him, and He brought me through all that pain, all that darkness that I was feeling. And on the other side of that, I found a purpose and a calling that I didn't even know I had before. I knew that I was called to ministry, but I found that purpose through the pain that I walked through. And now I get to share that testimony with the women in the home, the women that I get to minister to, and show them what God brought me through. I know that God can bring them through whatever necessary because I know what He personally did for me. I know there's nothing so bad that He can't fix it. I know that He makes the impossible possible. I know that He's a way maker, and I know that He's a miracle worker, and I speak it from my own experience. I went through the International School of Ministry here. I graduated from the program. I graduated from ISOM, and then I got ordained. And I'm able to speak to people. I'm able to reach people that have walked through the same thing that I've walked through. I'm able to sit here today redeemed and able to tell you the power of God and what He's done in my life and what He's going to continue to do.
So we both knew that we wanted to start a courtship process. So we had got with our pastoral staff, and they had seen fit after a time of prayer that is what our next step would be together. So we went through this process of really finding out more about each other and going through a deep study, of each other and some qualities about each other that, we might not have known about. So we seen fit after that we knew God had spoke to both of us to get married. And
then we got married on November 9th of 2019. And what is neat is that we actually got married in the Ava Assembly of God, which is the same church that led both of us to CareCenter, and resulting from that, both of us to Christ. After our honeymoon, we came back to Mountain Home and we got settled in, both as the acting directors of the men's and women's programs there. And then
God threw a curveball, and we had got presented that the Lord, was definitely opening up doors to start a care center in Missouri, where we're both from. So through that process, we didn't know what it looked like, but we knew that God was calling us to it. So we just stood in operating in faith on how that was going to look. And we actually, crazy enough, the same church that led us both to CareCenter, and which we got married in, had presented us with a 10,000 square foot facility in Mountain View, Missouri, for $1 for 5 years. So we knew that the Lord was obviously opening up doors, and now we're currently in that facility. We're taking in men now, and we have a demo project, remodel project that has been going on. Most currently, we have our first dorm room set up. We have freezers, food coming in. So the Lord's making partnerships with us and opening up doors. We just gave the mayor of Mountain View a tour, and the city of Mountain View are partnering with us and letting us be able to serve in the community in an extraordinary way. Already letting us have a park to kind of adopt and be able to bless the community, as well as starting a Beautify the City project with some local partners on what we can do to beautify the city of Mountain View. So the Lord's opening up doors, and we're just stepping right in them. And then with that, the Lord opened up a door for us to be able to get the house that we're in right now in Ava, Missouri. And it actually has been in my family for 67 years. So we have a house that my grandparents grew up in, that my great-grandparents owned. So now we're able to carry out a legacy of that, of which my family owned, and we can raise our family in this house as well. So the Lord's opened up doors, and we're just so grateful. We're so blessed, and it's crazy to think that the lifestyle that both of us came from, that He would see fit that we be His hands and feet in the way that we are.